Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, the only show that provides you with the best insight and information to everything Franklin County sports. And now here's your host, Bobby C.
Hello and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. And I want to welcome you here today. We got another great week here. Another milestone was happening this week. Can you believe this? We have had a milestone every single week for the last 5 weeks. There's always a kid who's been able to get things done in our local sports programs, and we're going to talk about it here on this week's show. Want to thank our underwriters, the 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant in Berniston, also by Denny's Pantry, Berniston Road in Greenfield, our friends over at Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, and by Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue A in Turners Falls. Want to thank John Meisner, also Philippe Simone. Thank you guys very much for everything that you guys have done to be able to keep things going here on GCTV. We're also on the FCAT down in South Deerfield, too. Thank you so much, Chris Collins, for giving us this opportunity. Why don't we get right into our show here today? Well, you know, on Monday, it was some girls basketball that happened, and trailing into the fourth quarter, the Mohawk Trail Regional girls team ended up outscoring Athol 16-7, and they picked up a 44-37 win at home. It was a big win for them, is a win that they really needed sort of to boost up a little bit of morale in their program. After losing 5 games in a row, this was a very important win for this Mohawk program. Grace Piplowski, well, she scored 17 points for Mohawk, which halted that 5-game losing streak. It was that big fourth quarter that really took them over the top. Stella Clark ended up in double figures with 10, Ashley Reynolds with 8, and Grace Ward with 5. A slow start, but a strong finish for Mohawk on Monday. Well, Frontier girls, thank God they built up a big lead against Putnam. That was back on Monday because they didn't even score a bucket in the third quarter of this game. But it was enough for them to win 39-29 over Putnam. That game was a very important win for their program in Springfield. You know, they built up a nice halftime lead, and they end up being able to pull off the win 39-29. It's pretty rough when you can be able to say that your team didn't even score in the third quarter and you still won by double digits. So really, when you really think about this whole situation, it really came down to a very good start for this Frontier program. Well, that was also a big win for them because as of last Monday, that brought their record to 7-6, one game over 500. Amelia Sobieski, she led the way offensively, ends up with 15 points. Charlotte Doulette, she ended up just missing a double-double, ends up with 9 points and a team high 14 rebounds. Olivia Dean had 6 points and 10 rebounds. Marie Demon ends up with 4 points and 8 bounds. Caitlin Mackin ends up with a point. She also had 11 boards in this one, all paced the dominant Frontier edge in the paint, which worked out very well for them. How about 8th grader Georgia Sacri? Ends up playing some key minutes. She gets 4 points in this one for the Red Hawks. Well, Hopkins Academy had no problem. They end up beating Pioneer. It was an easy win for them in girls basketball back on Monday last week. Hopkins Academy scored 50 points in the first half and went on to win 81-54. This really good Hopkins girls team has been able to get it done all season long. And if you ask the coach of Pioneer, Meg Burrington, she says the bottom line was it was lights out. And boy, that's exactly what happened. This team went on to be able to win big over the Panthers. Olivia Rowe, how about this for numbers? She had 20 points, 8 rebounds in the loss for Pioneer. Steph Scoville ended up having 15. Paige Loftman with 11. She also had 6 assists and 7 rebounds. Also, Alina Chechajanin, she ends up with 7 points, and Sarah Ellis ends up with 5 assists. So a tough loss for the Panthers, but against a very good Hopkins Academy girls basketball program. Well, McCann Tech, we all thought that maybe Turners might have had an opportunity to pick up their first victory last Monday in girls basketball, and it came up just a little short. Boy, Turner's hunting for that first win of the year. They end up losing to McCann Tech 51-46. I tell you right now, the Thunder, they raced out to a very nice halftime lead, 33-17, but they collapsed in that second half, and they ended up losing the lead, and they ended up losing the game. Dabney Rollins, though, what a nice night for her. She ended up with 18 points. Also, Allie Murphy with 9. Lindsay Whiteman ends up with 7. Tough loss for the Thunder on Monday night in girls basketball. Well, the Renaissance School proved why they're undefeated in girls basketball. They end up handing the Franklin County Tech girls an easy loss, unfortunately, because they did so well. Final score was 54-27. They pretty much doubled them up. That's exactly what happened in this one, as the Phoenix built a 20-point lead at halftime, and they never looked back. The Renaissance School right now is 14-0 on the season, and those Tech girls, they moved to 8-6 on the season, 2 more wins away from qualifying for tournament. Jocelyn Crowning Shield, she dropped in a team high 12 points for the Eagles. Desiree Doan and Isabel Duga, they each had 5 in the loss for the Tech school. Well, in wrestling, back on Monday, Frontier knocked off Athol 42-27. Jackie Frong, he ended up having a pin 20 seconds into the match, and he did that at the 285-point weight class. Also, they did very well in this one as well, because Frontier on the season is 11-3 as of Monday with 2 ties. I also want you to know that they ended up receiving victories from Nachita and the 120-pound class, also Jake Matson, 132 class, Ito McMillan, 145 class, Eric Truswell, 160, and Nate Austin at 195. Nice win for Frontier. So congratulations goes out to our winners on Monday. Want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. We get together with you each and every week right here on GCTV, also on the FCAT down in South Deerfield. So nice to be able to get together and talk high school sports here on the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, where we're available for you online 24/7 at gctv.org. And by the way, I want to let you know that we have wonderful underwriters too. The 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant in Berniston, also by our friends over at Albert Hearing Services, 33 Riddell Street in Greenfield, by Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue A in Turners Falls, and by Denny's Pantry, Berniston Road in Greenfield. And of course, we have Philippe Simone and John Meisner as our producers of this program. As we move into Wednesday, because there was nothing that happened on Tuesday. Why? Because Tuesday we had a big storm here in the area, and all the games were all canceled on Tuesday night. So we absolutely lost a full day of reports for you because we had nothing available on Tuesday. So we slide into Wednesday. Weather's a lot better Wednesday night, and we get things started with some basketball. Well, in boys basketball, it was Frontier, a strong performance defensively against the Mohawk Trail Warriors. Honestly, this was a girls' game, honestly. This was the Frontier girls taking on Mohawk, and it was a 43-25 win for the Frontier girls, which was a very important victory for them because they are really almost there. They're just about there to make those 10 wins and be able to qualify for a tournament. The Red Hawks ended up holding a 10-point lead after the first half. Mohawk also played well defensively as well, but Frontier was able to pull away and win this one by 18 points. Now Frontier, 8-6 on the season, only 2 wins away in their final 6 games if they want to qualify for postseason play. And I'll tell you right now, they can do this. Amelia Sobieski, big night for Frontier with 16 points, including 8 in the first half. Charlotte Doulette ended up with 6 points in the first half. She finished with 10 on the night. Olivia Dean ends up with 9 points. Marie Demon ends up with a pair of 3-pointers in the third quarter. She ends up with 6. Grace Poplowski led the way for Mohawk. She ends up with 14 points, including 10 that she had just from the free throw line. So how important are your free throw shots? Very. She ends up with 16 on the night. Grace Ward had a nice all-around game for Mohawk as well. Ends up with 5 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 block shots. So a nice night for Grace Ward in the loss. Well, in boys basketball, it was quite the game on Wednesday night. It was the Pioneer boys taking on Greenfield. Everything that Greenfield wanted in this one, they had except for one, a win. Boy, too bad when you take a team that has averaged almost 70 points a game, you hold them to 46 points, and you can't get 47 points yourself to pick up the win. They lose by 5. And here's the sad part about this, is that Pioneer, they really did have a tough night shooting. And the defense that Greenfield was able to play was some fits that this team was having against Greenfield. But it was just enough, and there was a guy who got it done, Garrett Cody. That's right. Garrett Cody, the senior from Pioneer, comes up with 24 points on the night. Think about this. He scores 24 of the 46 points for his team, and it was perfect because it gave them the exact momentum and the exact number of points they needed to win. They pulled it off by 5 on the road in Greenfield. Pioneer, I'll tell you right now, they have made it over 50 every single game, but not tonight. That, according to this game, they weren't able to hit that 50-point mark. And the sad thing is Greenfield, who had everything going their way, could not get it done. It's very sad when you see how Greenfield could play that much work in a defensive game and still not score enough offense. And that's exactly what Coach Angelo Thomas said. Defensively, we executed the way we wanted to. We just gave up too many offensive rebounds, and that's why they won the game. They out-rebounded us. When they're getting second and third chances to be able to score after we're doing such a great job stopping them, well, it came up and it bit us. And that's exactly what happened, too, because they did get out-rebounded in this one by Pioneer. Another difference, of course, was Cody. How about 5 3-pointers, 24 points? A kid can shoot from downtown, but he was shooting from way downtown. How about like 30, 33 feet away from the hoop, banging threes, and nothing but net, too, for Garrett Cody. Jared Hubbard ends up with 10 points. Nice job for him. The freshman had a great night, as well as Troy Iman with 6. Mason Meadows ends up with a double-double for Greenfield. He had 15 points. He did have 18 rebounds, but I'll tell you right now, those 18 rebounds could have been 36 rebounds for Mason Meadows. He could have dominated even more down low, but hey, still 18 rebounds on the day. Owen Phelps netted 8 points. Nate Hazelton with 6. Greenfield, 7-7 as of Wednesday, and they are going to end up playing Pioneer again this week. So we'll talk about how everything goes in our show next week in showdown number 2 between Greenfield and Pioneer. So Pioneer already in the tournament. Greenfield still needs 3 victories to be able to get in. We'll see how they do. They got game that we're going to talk about a little bit later on, their game against Mahar. Then, of course, like I said, they got to play Pioneer. They still got to play Mohawk. They still got to play Athol, and they still got to play Smith Academy. So Greenfield's got to find 3 wins somewhere if they want to make postseason play. Well, in wrestling on Wednesday, it was Hampshire Regional with a nice win over Mohawk, 57-12. I can tell you that Jade Moore and Ethan Bauer, they each won for Mohawk. That's where their points came from. Moore scored a second period pin at 1:45, and Bauer ended up pinning someone in 55 seconds at the 220 weight class. So Mohawk gets beat by Hampshire Regional in wrestling back on Wednesday, 57-12. Well, the Greenfield hockey team, something happened on Wednesday. They lost their first game of the season, and boy, they lost big. Final score was 8-1 to Amherst Regional. Amherst Regional, as far as they're concerned, that was their revenge from getting beat by this team last year in the playoffs. Well, it was one of those motivators. Matter of fact, the coach even said at the beginning of the game that we got to have some motivation to be able to beat this Green Wave team. And that's exactly what this team did back in Amherst over at Orr Rink on Wednesday night with the 8-1 victory. You know, sometimes you say to yourself, what really happened in this one? Well, honestly, the loss was a good loss for Greenfield because they've been cruising along. They haven't lost yet this year. Maybe it is good when you get someone to come up and smack you in the face once in a while and let you know that you're not as invincible as you think you are. And with Greenfield getting beat by Amherst, one of their rivals in this one, 8-1, that surely is something I think could come out to be a good, especially if they can learn from this and continue their winning ways. A lot of respect for this Greenfield team, and I'll tell you right now, at the beginning of the season, they talked about the team goals that this team's wanted. And, of course, one of their goals was to be undefeated, and that was something that they were hoping to have. But it didn't happen because Mike McGoldrick said, hey, we had goals at the beginning of the year, and now one of them isn't going to happen. We're not going to be undefeated, but we want to be one of the best teams when it comes to be ready for playoffs. Well, when you take a little loss like this, it can be a good thing. And they are in the Western Mass Division 3A division with Amherst, so these two teams could meet again. Looks like Bryan Baumann scored for Greenfield. Kyle Barnes and Hanoski each had 1 assist. Riley Drew ended up with 22 saves for Greenfield in the net, and they still ended up getting beat 8-1. So a really tough game for the Wave back on Wednesday. Want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. We get together with you each and every week here on GCTV and also on the FCAT in South Deerfield. You know, it's always nice to be able to share with you how these kids have been doing so well. And it amazes me all the time on how there's kids that just keep stepping it up week after week after week. And that's exactly what we've been able to do over the last few weeks. We have had a milestone with some kind of a player each and every week the last 5 weeks. So our winter sports teams are really bringing out some great talent. And this week we ended up having someone else do something pretty special, and we're going to talk about that on the show. Well, we're up to Thursday now. Yes, we are. And Olivia Rowe scored a season-high 24 points, notching her second consecutive 20-point outing. And Pioneer picked up a 59-50 win over Athol. That was over at Mallet Gymnasium in Athol back on Thursday. Rowe, averaging 14.1 points a game, well, helped her out a little bit there with that 24 points, helping the Panthers to an 8-7 record right now as of Thursday, and brings them only a couple wins away from making tournament, which I feel they will do. Paige Loftman ends up with 14 points for Pioneer. Steph Scoville ends up with 9. Sarah Ellis with 6. A nice job done by Olivia Rowe and her Pioneer Panthers with their win over Athol. Well, the Pathfinder Franklin County Tech game turned out to be a very big game for Pathfinder because they ended up digging deep and came all the way out of a hole to come back and beat the Franklin County Tech Lady Eagles. Now, this is a tough loss for the Lady Eagles, and I'm going to tell you why. Because they've started off really, really slow. Then they started to go on a nice run. Now, all of a sudden, they're starting to hit a couple bumpy patches right now. They ended up losing their game earlier this week, and they got beat by Pathfinder 40-39. They got beat by 1 point. Sad thing is that they were leading 26-14 at halftime. And they needed that extra point bad. So now the Tech girls are at 8-7 on the year. Jordan Hurlbert ended up with 15 points, and Jocelyn Crowningshield with 13 points in the loss for Franklin County Tech. Jemmy Cruz ends up with 5 points, all from the free throw line for the Tech Lady Eagles. Well, that Hopkins team is so legit in girls basketball, and boy, Samantha Jenks turns out to be one of the best players in all of Western Massachusetts, and they pick up a 72-19 victory over Mohawk. Wow, that is really taking it to them, I'll tell you right now. You know, Jenks scored 21 points in the first half and ends up with that game-high 25. Of course, she probably sat the bench a little bit too, but hey, this Mohawk team really found out how good Hopkins really is. Stella Clark ends up with 11 points for Mohawk. Also received points from Grace Poplowski and Tess Rancourt. They each had 5. So a tough loss for the Warriors against Hopkins. That game was on Thursday, 72-19, Hopkins with the win. Well, in boys basketball, it was a battle between Turner's Falls boys and Mohawk, and it was all Turner's Falls in this one. These guys are starting to play some good basketball right now. Question is, they have a tough end of their season. Can they get enough juice in them to be able to win and get the 10 wins they need to be able to make tournament? Well, after a tough start to the season, Turner's is really starting to play well. They beat Mohawk 64-44, a nice 20-point victory for Turner's Falls. You know, two teams, they were both tied 19-19. That was after the first quarter. And then all of a sudden, Turner started to sort of chip away. They only had a 3-point lead, though, at halftime, 30-27. So think about this. They ended up scoring 34 more points in the second half. And this is the big stat right here. 17 points was all that Mohawk could score in the second half. That's why they picked up the victory. Now the win moves Turner's as of Thursday of last week to 7-8. Okay, so there's still a game under 500. They only need 3 wins to make it into postseason play. And boy, they really need to work hard. One of their big games will be coming up, and that is a game that they're going to end up playing tomorrow. So we'll talk about how they did against the team they had to play. But you know what, a big game for them? A guy who's been able to come in and do a different role for them, Ryan Campbell. Ryan Campbell ends up with a big night. How about a season high? 14 points and 8 rebounds. Campbell entered the night averaging 4.2 points per game on the season. Their coach said, Ryan had an excellent game. He created 5 possessions for us in the first half. Pure hustle alone. He had the nice 3-pointers. Nice job for Ryan Campbell. Picks up a huge night to help out his team over Mohawk. They end up winning by 20. Chase Novak ends up with 23 points in the win, doing what he does well, shoot from outside. Anthony Peterson, the guy down low, their big center, ends up with 9 points. Ryan Kaczynski with 6 points. Jeremiah Russell, also Kyle Dodge and Jaden Whiting, each chipped in 4 points. Jackson Hicks ended up with 15 points and 8 rebounds for Mohawk. Anthony Moffitt with 8 points. Owen Cross with 6. Also, Ruben Bassett had 4 points and 6 rebounds for Mohawk in the loss. So a nice win by Turner's Falls on Thursday night in boys basketball. Well, this Frontier team, they decided that they were going to put a couple D1 teams on their schedule. Well, they took on that D1 team from West Springfield, and they took on the Terriers in a game that was played at Goodnoe Gymnasium back on Thursday night. And Frontier picks up the 54-43 victory. Senior Karsten Carey, the guy was just on fire. Man, how about this? 22 points, 30 rebounds on the night for Karsten Carey. He is, right now, the best basketball player in Franklin County, followed by Garrett Cody of Pioneer. Man, this kid is getting it done. There is no one who can be able to stop him in our area. He has proved it all season long. As a skilled player, he has really done well this year. And you know what? Coach Ben Barshevsky says, I've challenged him to get better. I've told him that there's areas where he can grow, and he has been able to do it. He's listened to his coach. He's met those challenges throughout the year, and he is right now a mismatch to pretty much everybody. Nobody can stop Karsten Carey this season. No, the big thing is when it comes down to tournament time, when you start playing some of those really good teams for the Berkshires, you got to play Sabas from Springfield because they're in their division. This is where Karsten Carey is going to have to go up, and he's going to have to play a little bit different type of basketball than what he's used to, and that is physical. He's going to have to get more physical. And if he can get physical and be able to start grinding it out with some of these big guys from these other really good basketball programs, we shall see how well Frontier can go into this tournament. How deep can they get? That's the question. We will find out very soon, folks, because tournament play will be starting in just a few weeks. Can't believe our winter season is starting to wind down. So a nice job by that team from Frontier with their nice win over a Division I program in Westside back on Thursday night. You know, you talk about other guys who've been able to get it done this year. You know, one of the guys has been Owen Morris. He's ended up with 14 points, including a pair of three-pointers. How about Peter Carey? That's right. That is Karsten's brother. He ends up with 8 points. Yes, they've only lost one game. Think about this. They lost their first game of the year. They've won 13 in a row. Frontier and the Red Hawks are definitely on fire. Want to welcome you to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. We get together with you each and every week right here on the FCAT. Also, we get together on GCTV. It's so nice to be able to have an opportunity to be able to share with you guys this wonderful sports program. You know, it's sad because we lost a day, and if we didn't lose a day, it would have made it a little bit more fun for us. But as the old saying says, we just got to keep talking. Let's do it. And let's talk about the milestone that was hit this past week. Ladies and gentlemen, it happened in hockey. That's right. A junior getting in the club. Well, they had a senior that got in the club for 100 points, and that was the 100-point club that was for high school hockey, where Doug Hanoski did it about 5 weeks ago. Well, now, 5 weeks later, junior Bryan Baumann, probably one of the best hockey players in Western Massachusetts, he ended up scoring a hat trick, ended up with 3 assists, and they ended up thumping Gardner back on Friday night over at the Collins Moylan Arena in Greenfield in front of the home crowd, where he picked up his 100th point. So congratulations goes out to Bryan Baumann, another milestone from another high school athlete, and we've been able to talk about it right here on our show. Baumann, who ended up joining Doug Hanoski as 2 Greenfield players in the Century Club, it turned out to be pretty nice because against Wacona, it was an opportunity for Hanoski to be able to hit the club. Well, guess what? It worked out pretty good because now we have 2 guys from Greenfield in the Century Club. Bryan, only a junior, according to their coach, has been a very special part of the program. Adam Bouchard says that Bryan's one of those kids at practice that works hard all the time, truly loves the game, and he knows how to be able to put the work in. And not only does he put the work in, he also has a really good relationship with his players as well. They're very proud. It's a personal goal to be able to have as many players as possible, be able to reach that plateau. Having him and Dougie reach it has been pretty special, and Coach Bouchard is very proud of those 2 kids and the hard work that they've put in. So Greenfield, after getting beat by that Amherst team earlier in the week, well, they didn't lose any ground at all with an 8-1 win over Gardner, and not only that, but having another player back in the Century Club. So Hanoski is now joined by Baumann. Greenfield held the shots on net in this one on Friday. How about 34-13? And Riley Drew ended up with 12 saves in this one. Very nice job done by Hanoski and also by Riley. He's really had a great year too. Riley Drew has done a nice job in the net for the Wave. Well, the 2 teams, Gardner and Greenfield, we'll talk about their game. They did a back-to-back. So in Greenfield on Friday night, everybody pack up, head over to Gardner on Saturday. We'll talk about the Saturday game in just a moment. Well, in girls basketball, the Greenfield High School girls team, they decided that they were going to put a couple D1 divisional powerhouses on their schedule this year. Well, they ended up losing to the Division I team, Whitman-Hanson, by 10 points earlier in the year. And guess what? They took on Groton-Dunstable, and they ended up losing by 10. But Coach Hickey offered up some really good information in this one. He says, as us being a strong Division II program, we wanted to take on a couple of Division I programs from out of this area to see where we stand. And taking on teams like Whitman-Hanson, taking on teams like Groton-Dunstable, gave us an opportunity to be able to play some teams from a different region here in the state. We fought hard. Groton-Dunstable is a very physical and a very tall team. And we really only have Sam Smith as our main tall player. The other girls are not as tall as her, and that's very true. So really, it turned out to be a very good lead for the Wave in the first half because they were up 23-20, but they started to lose a little bit of ground in the second half. Sam Smith still ended up with 15 points for Greenfield, Reagan Hickey with 14, Katie Hazelton with 10. Those are the top three players that can score on this team. They ended up getting outscored 36-24 after intermission, and that's why they ended up losing by 10 in this one. You know, if you really think about it, though, it worked out pretty well for Greenfield to be able to take on a couple of really good Division I teams. It sort of gives them an idea of where they're going to stand for the upcoming Division II tournament, which I think it's going to be a battle in the Division II tournament because they have some very good girls programs in Division II each and every year, including Hoosick Valley, who is always a tough team year after year. Well, the Frontier Lady Redhawks, they took on Lennox. That game was played back on Friday night. Frontier ends up losing this one 42-25. I can tell you that they really struggled offensively in this one, falling behind 18-12 at the half and managing only 13 points after that. But Amelia Sobieski, she has turned out to be the big star for them in scoring. 12 points for her on the night, and Olivia Dean ended up with 8 in the loss for the Redhawks. Well, that Greenfield boys basketball team that had a chance to beat Pioneer, they had a battle on Friday night against Mahar. It was all Mahar in this one. Final score was 63-43. And if you ask the head coach of Mahar, Coach Softic said, Greenfield looked very disoriented. You know, our 3-2 zone, the way that we were working, we dominated in this one. And it's really true. They surely did dominate this one. So Greenfield, 7-8, still sitting with 3 wins that they need to make postseason play. They get beat big by Mahar out on the road. Mason Meadows ended up with 15 for Greenfield. Ryan Cody ended up with 8, and Owen Phelps ends up with 7 in the loss for Greenfield. Well, Pioneer, they ended up taking on Mohawk. And it was an easy 20-point win for the Panthers as their boys basketball team continues their winning ways. Troy Iman poured in 25 points in the first half. Pioneer pulled away with that easy win. Sad thing is Iman entering the second half, just scoring 2 points in, ended up suffering an injury and had to leave the game. So think about this. This guy was on fire and ended up having to leave the game. Still ended up with the game high for his team. Pioneer ended up leading big at the end of the first half, 39-16. Can tell you that Garrett Cody had 11 points on the night. Jared Hubbard ended up with 9. Owen Cross had 13 points for Mohawk. Jackson Hicks ended up with 11 points, and Ruben Bassett with 6 in the loss for the Warriors. Well, Turner's Falls picked up another big win as they knocked off Smith Academy back on Friday night in boys basketball. Final score was 63-51. Turner's Falls continues to make that late season push, trying to get to that tournament 10 to be able to make it into tournament play. Tell you right now, this is one team. If they make tournament, I wouldn't want to play them in the first round. I'd be worried because this team is really starting to put it together. A little bit of a slow start for Turner's Falls, but they really started to pick things up in the second half. They were only down 20-17 at halftime, but Turner's really started to pick things up in the second half, and the tempo started to go their way. All of a sudden, Turner's is proving why they are wanting to get to postseason play. Everybody is all starting to play together. You know, if you think about it, there's guys that can shoot on this team, and when they're on, they can get it done. Tyler Lavin ends up with 21 points in the win. Chase Novak with 13. Jeremiah Russell with 10. Also, Anthony Peterson with 8 points. Ryan Campbell with 6. Kyle Dodge with 5. Nice job being able to held their big shooters to only 39 points total between Zygmunt and Gratz. They are the two guys who can shoot very well for this Smith Academy team. Nice win for Turner's Falls on Friday night on the road. Well, the Frontier boys, no problem in their victory over Belchertown back on Friday night. Final score was 66-39. Just a day after that huge win against Division I school West Springfield, well, they came back and did what they do best, take care of business. Karsten Carey, another hot offensive night for him. 27 points, 15 rebounds in the victory. Kalen Evans, hey, he joined him in double figures with 12. Also, Timmy Barrington with 7. Peter Carey and Gabe Jones-Thompson each had 5. And Owen Wakowitz ends up with 4 for Frontier. So Frontier continues their hot play, getting it done here in the 2018-2019 season. Well, in wrestling, the Franklin County Tech School took on Duggan. Final score was 48-24. Franklin County wrestlers, well, no problem for them. How about 6 pins? That's pretty sweet. And now they're getting ready for the Division III tournament, which we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Will Rosenberg, he earned a first period pin at the 113 weight class. Josh Burnell with a pin midway through the second period at 120. Colin Pettis ends up with a nice late first period pin at 132. Also Brody Wood, how about a nice pin for him at the 170 weight class. Also Walker Picard earned the fastest pin of the day at the 220-pound class, literally in 23 seconds. Cam Tuttle ends up picking up a pin late stages of the second period at the 285 weight class. So a nice job, a great season so far for the Franklin County Tech Eagles. Very proud of these kids. They have worked very hard. Another win was in the 145 weight class by Noah Fuse, who ends up getting it done for the Tech School. All right. So we've made it through all the way the week. We had a chance to be able to talk about our 4 days of sports because our pretty much snowouts on Tuesday made it so that we lost a full day of sports information that we can't share with you. But we also talked about the great milestone of Bryan Baumann getting it done. But now we're into Saturday, okay? So Saturday, it's another hockey opportunity for the Green Wave as they are going to travel to Gardner for a game, and they win big. After winning 8-1 on Friday night, they win 11-1 on Saturday night in Gardner. Sean O'Sullivan and Bryan Baumann each had 3 goals for Greenfield in this one. So Baumann is way over the 100-point club now. And, of course, he's only a junior, so he's got a long way to go. Very talented young man. And O'Sullivan had himself a great game, too. Also finished with 1 assist. So 4 points on the day for Sean O'Sullivan. Kevin Baumann, also Aiden Roach, they each had a goal and 3 assists. Kyle Barnes and Adam Savoy each had 1 goal and 2 assists apiece. How about Cam Rice picking up a goal, as well as Jacob Bryant and Mike McGoldrick? Yep, and Derek Lanois had himself an assist as well for Greenfield in the victory. Jordan LaValle ends up picking up his first win of the season. He was in the net in this one. He had 12 saves. So congratulations to Jordan LaValle. And, of course, a huge congratulations to Bryan Baumann, now in the 100-point club. Yes, in hockey. Great job. All right, the seedings for the Division III wrestling in Western Mass, they were set on Saturday, and I want to share this with you as we wind down our show, because we're going to end up having probably a couple of things to talk about quick before we wrap up our show today. And this is an important segment that I hope you can tune into. And I hope you can get over to the Tech School on Saturday, because they're going to be hosting this tournament on Saturday. The Franklin County Tech School ends up with number 1 seeds for a couple of guys. Frontier Regional picked up a pair of 2 seeds. A couple of top seeds as well. Here's how it works. Saturday, 10 o'clock will be where everything begins. It'll run throughout the day. All these kids are all seated. We're going to run it down. Here we go. Franklin County Tech, their most seeded wrestlers in the tournament, they have 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 of their players are seeded wrestlers. And let's run how it goes. Okay? Kyle Burnell, who recently earned a 100th career victory, one of those milestones we talked about, he'll be the top seed in the 145-pound class. Frontier's Jake Matson picked up a number 6 seed. Brody Wood joined Burnell in the 100 club earlier this season, another milestone. He picked up a top seed in the 170 weight class. That should be a lot of fun. Also, a kid from Mohawk by the name of Mason Bijani ends up with a 2 seed, the highest of any Warrior wrestler. And Frontier's Casey Matson is the 8 seed. Now, as for Frontier and their top seeds, we have those available for you too. Nate Austin, he has the top seed in the 195-pound class. Also, Aiden Stacy, 5th. Frontier's Jackie Frong leads the way at 285. Cam Tuttle will have a 5th seed in the 285 class. Frontier's Walker Picard end up earning a 2 seed at 220. Mohawk's Ethan Bauer is the 5th seed. Franklin County Tech's Josh Burnell, he earns a 3 seed at 120. Also, Nachita ends up with a 4 seed at 113. Tanner Finch is a 4 seed at the 126 weight class. Franklin County Tech's Colin Pettis ended up earning a 4 seed at 132. Quentin Romer, a 4 seed from Mohawk at the 152 weight class. Also, Franklin County Tech's Noah Fuse ends up with a 6 seed. Franklin County Tech's Tim Fritz earned a 5th seed at 160. Mohawk's Dylan Woolridge ends up with a 6 seed. Also, Frontier's Ito McMillan picks up a 5th seed at 145. Just remember, folks, they're all just a number. They all got to do this on Saturday. So get out and enjoy some great wrestling. Should be a lot of fun. Tell you right now, I'm very impressed with our wrestling program at the Franklin County Tech and Frontier this season. Well, we also want you to know the track and field ended for the year for the indoor track and field. How about the Greenfield Green Wave? They ended up becoming co-winners this year. So Greenfield boys end up picking up a championship this year. So great job done by them. Congratulations on a great season. Also, the Frontier, the Mohawk girls end up doing well, and they end up winning as well. So really some great milestones this week. A big congratulations goes out to Baumann. Also, congratulations to all the kids on their seedings for wrestling. Their tournament will be this weekend at the Franklin County Tech School. It all starts at 10 a.m., a full day of fun wrestling. Get out and support these kids. As we wind down the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report, I want to say to you, thank you for tuning in. We'll do it again next week, as we do every week here on GCTV, also on the FCAT in South Deerfield. And also, don't forget that something really cool happened this weekend. Yes, these guys right here won another world championship. Unbelievable. They are legit. So now, as I slide here, these guys are going to be repeat again? Never know. Could we have to wait, a few more months before another championship? It's okay with me. I love New England, and I love Franklin County. So until we meet again, have yourself a wonderful week. The 4-Leaf Clover Restaurant. Also, Denny's Pantry, Burniston Road in Greenfield, Hubie's Tavern and Restaurant, Avenue Way in Turner's Falls, and Lisa Albert of Albert Hearing Services in Greenfield are our sponsors. Philippe Simone and John Meisner, they are the producers. Until we meet again next week on Bobby C, support your local athletes.
Thanks for watching the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report on GCTV. Catch a game and be sure to join us next time for more sports and fun.